Hello, everyone. This is Dave March, host of Land of Confusion, the Ricochet Show, 5 members, 4 members, where we interview members. Today, we're coming to you and we're interviewing Franco, who've been trying to make this happen for a couple weeks now. And after an extensive 20 minutes confusion of interacting with him, we finally got everything to work. And here's my co-host, Flicker.
Hi, how's it going? I hope you enjoy the show.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I just wanted to send out a note to those who may have not have heard. There is a private member post going on right now talking about one of the person who was voted our most favorite guest on this show. Boss Mongo apparently passed away last night of a heart attack. So our thoughts and prayers are with his family. And if you really want to get to know him, we have 2 episodes you can go watch and get to know this person who is such a bigger than life personality, I thought, and was really hoping to meet him when I came to the States in the summer and later this year.
Yeah, I was just thinking last night, we were talking last night on the chat, the AMU chat, and I was thinking, like if I ever get down to the Key, or, I would love to meet him personally, because I really, he's a great guy, and it's so sad.
Okay. Well, now I'm just going to, it is kind of sad. It is very sad. I'm sorry, but
to Mongo.
Yeah,
to Boss Mongo.
The Mongo.
The Mongo. Okay, so now we're joined by Franco, who has, when I saw you posted a few weeks ago on Ricochet about a lot about your life, and I was just like, oh my God, we so have to get you on the show as a guest. And let's just looking at your early life, you kind of grew up as going as a part of the hippie scene. You were already by 1968 here. You're had run away from your home several times, and then went to join the Merchant Marine. Could you care to elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, well, I think that looking back on my life, I've been doing that a lot lately, because I'm getting to the philosophical age of like, what have I done with my life, and what's good about it and bad about it and all that stuff. And my kids are grown pretty much, so now I'm basically thinking about that. But that was a really bad time to be 16 years old. No. So because I was too young to get into college, and I was already kind of rambunctious and a rebel. So, and everything was changing. So yeah, I did all this. I kind of fell in with a wrong crowd, but they weren't bad people. We were just petty criminals. They were just petty criminals, like a lot of teenagers. And yeah, so anyway, I kind of got derailed, ran away from home a couple times, hitchhiked around the country. And luckily I straightened out around age 21. But in the meantime, though, I did join the Merchant Marine. My father had been in the Merchant Marine during World War II, and he kind of got me in. And this was kind of a way to straighten out my life. And I got my hair crew cutted and went to kind of a boot type camp. It was really a union school, Seafarers International Union, and that was just kind of a little boot camp to weed out people that would be, not be able to make it. It wasn't really that hard. It wasn't really like the Army or anything, but it was, it was like a boot camp. And then I got shipped out. I got on a ship that went to Vietnam and Japan. And those were my first foreign ports. And that really opened my mind. Vietnam in 1970 was still kind of winding down. It was Cam Ranh Bay. And, but anyway, through those years, but I was off and on going back and forth. I remember I went to the Fillmore West, the iconic Fillmore West, to see a band, and it happened to be the Paul Butterfield Blues Band. And I remember being in the lobby, and I had a crew cut, and I had this jacket, the only kind of jacket I had. It was fairly chilly, and it was said SIU on the back of it, which meant Seafarers International Union. And this hippie guy, out of Central Casting, like California hippie, golden curly locks, bell bottoms, and a fringe jacket. And he looked over at me, and I forget exactly, but he was very disparaging because I had a crew cut, because I didn't fit in. So, and he said, and I felt very uncomfortable because I already did feel a little bit uncomfortable. It's like, I'm not dressed like these people. I'm with them. I like the Paul Butterfield Blues Band and all that stuff. But anyway, I forget exactly what he said, but he said, like, across the lobby something really disparaging about me. It's like, what are you doing here, or something like that. And then I just left. And he said, Southern Illinois University. Yeah, right on, man. Like something like that, stupid like that. And that was my first inkling that these people are the same. It's the same stuff, different hair length, so to speak. It's they're as intolerant as anybody else.
Yeah.
That was my first clue of that. But yeah. So anyway, I did that, and I just kind of had a fairly. But then I straightened out, so to speak, and went to community college. But I had learned how to juggle, so I started to. I learned how to juggle, so that was. Actually, I think in retrospect, I think I had ADD. I think I really had ADHD or something, and juggling really helped me. So when I stopped drinking, and I just, all I did was juggle all day. And I got pretty good, but in those days, it was more of a novelty. Like, everybody can juggle now, just about, I mean, I've taught a lot of people how to juggle. So that's how I got into circus arts and clowning and stuff like that. So I went to Great Adventure, and I worked at Great Adventure. So I mean, I don't know.
Great Adventure. I'm not.
It's a theme park. It's like a Six Flags. It was shortly. I was there right before it was taken over by Six Flags. But Six Flags is like, oh, they must have 6 or 8 giant theme parks around the country. It started in Texas, and there was a circus show there, and it was a very good circus show. And I was one of the clowns in the circus show. So
yeah, it's interesting. We all tend to be the people writing and on Ricochet, thinking to ourselves, these people, our fellow commentators are often a bunch of clowns, and here we are talking to a professional clown.
Well, yes. Well, yes. I mean, I really don't like how how clowns are disparaged by, calling certain people clowns. It's like they don't deserve to be, No, I look at it as it's a high art, really. It's I mean, in terms of, there's a lot of stereotypes about clowning, and I've worked against this my entire life, because people think of Bozo, or they think of Ronald McDonald, or they think of Ringling Brothers clowns, for example, that style. But when I think of clowns and use the term, I'm really talking about like Charlie Chaplin or Buster Keaton. They're considered clowns by, there's artistic clowns mostly in Europe. The European tradition is basically, there's so many different languages over there, and the traveling shows couldn't really be verbal. So all of the because of the languages, and so all of the traveling shows, Commedia dell'arte and all that stuff, was more, they had some language, but it was basic, and it was basic slapstick and basic movement theater. And that really is the beginning of clowning. And of course, Chaplin and Keaton were silent, and again, it's movement theater. It's dance, pantomime, and visual comedy. And so I really grew to love visual comedy. There's all kinds. I mean, Lucille Ball. There's all kinds of people that are doing it. They just don't call it clowning. because people think of the makeup but you can do it without, it exists outside of that milieu of, the stereotype so that's what I got interested in. You could also call it art clowning or something. There's all kinds of different styles, but I got into the European style of clowning and studied it. But actually, I wasn't really very good. I'm not a natural clown. I'm not really. I mean, I know tons of people who are clowns, and I just basically at one point found, yeah, I can sort of do some things, but when I'm not a natural at it, and you kind of have to be a natural at it. So it was something that I wanted to do, but I'm not I understand it and I appreciate it, but I'm not necessarily anything close to a master at it. But I have then later learned violin, and not that I'm a master at that either, but I play for a clown in Texas at the Texas Renaissance Festival. His name is Arsène. He's from France, and he's a silent comedian, and he's very funny. And I sometimes just play backing violin for him while he's doing his turns, and it's really fun because I really enjoy watching. He is really a master at what he does. And the audiences are about like 200 to 500 people a show, and it's just out in the open air, and it's a very nice theater there in Texas, so that's really fun to watch him perform, and it's nice also because there's not too much pressure on me. It's really his show, and everybody's watching him. So I get to look out at the audience, and none of them are watching me. So I can just see them enjoy the show, and it's really fun. I don't feel like, other than having to play the music, I don't feel like I have to carry anything.
Let me ask you a question. First of all, let me just observe that I think you're one of two entertainers or actors or entertainers on Ricochet. One of two conservatives who are entertainers. I think that's interesting. Do you think that entertainers tend to be utopian progressives, or is it split down the middle, conservative and liberal, or what?
Hard to say. I think that there's a natural tension between so-called conservatives and libertines. I would say entertainers are generally libertarian leaning, and they're libertines. And so in general, and there's a competition. This is my own personal theory, but I'm sure it's not just mine, but there's a competition. The church and entertainment, like the church in the medieval times and Renaissance times, was basically, it's all about like getting it, and entertainers have a natural antipathy because the churches want to basically put on a show. I'm not saying that it's shallow. I'm not saying religion is shallow, but they are basically putting on a show. They have the organ, they have the stained glass windows and everything, and it's come out on Sundays, and the village or the town, everything operates nicely around the church, and then this Commedia dell'arte troupe comes in. They've been traveling all over Europe, and the women are licentious, and the men are they're gypsies basically, and that is kind of and the church naturally doesn't want these people, and the entertainers naturally start to grow an aversion to the religious people. And I think this is carried out tremendously, because I think you could even go to Hollywood and they really dislike religious people. And I've seen so many entertainers who are sons of ministers who were maybe overbearing, and they just completely rebelled. And so so and it's a lot about belief system, because actors are all about creating another belief system. So, and playwrights and everything, they're so it's an alternative. So I do think that people are but they're also busy with their own stuff. They don't know. They're not reading they're just hearing what's going on. They're hearing what their friends do. They party, they have fun. They're very social people. They don't go home and read the newspapers. And they just want to join in with others and relate and just have fun. And so it's really easy to just pick out the the bumper sticker things and just laugh and just be like Stephen Colbert, ha ha ha. And that they're superficial in that way. So I'm not even without going into depth about it, yeah, they're just not. And a lot of them work really, really hard. They're working very, very hard to do what they do. Dancers and acrobats, and they don't really have time to bone up on all the latest political stuff. And they naturally are going to choose the side of libertine.
Yeah.
Like, just let everybody do everything. And of course, actors, there's so many of the acting community, and especially dancers, who are gay. And so they feel very, and they have this boogeyman attitude of like Christian conservatives. That's their boogeyman under the bed that they think is stifling everything for them. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think that's how it works.
Today, they say the popular expression is "my truth, your truth." But what gets me is mostly female, but actresses, but actors as well. When they're talking about their work, and they're talking about a movie or a play, generally a movie that they acted in, they often pick out one moment or one few seconds where they say, and this is where he or I really expressed our truth, or found our truth, or there was such truth in that moment. And I find that to be I think that's kind of alters the definition of truth, because they're fundamentally acting, they're imitating, they're trying to relive or trying to live a life. That is to say, I come from an actor's studio perspective, immersion and so forth. They're trying to imagine a life and act the life, and they've somehow, the epitome of their acting a profession, which I think actually is the epitome of acting, mm-hmm. is they define it as living in a truth, or experiencing a truth, or communicating a truth. Yet it's really sort of the opposite, I think. Do you agree or disagree that there's a difference between living truth and acting truth?
Well, yeah, but I mean, I agree in the sense of, but who knows what's true? And to make a declaration is, this is my truth. Okay, I guess you can say my truth, and since it's yours, you can define it however way you want. And it doesn't, but does that mean it in the same way as, but I think I know where you're getting at. Like, they get this feeling, I'm not sure, but they get this feeling like, oh, I was really in that character, and I really felt that moment. And I felt when, when Sophie had to make the choice, or whatever it is, that I was there, and I was her, or I was him, whatever. And of course, we know that they're really not. And but at the same time, there is an art to it that is connecting with something that's not you. Right. So to be a really good actor, and I don't know how to act. I have taken acting courses and stuff, but I'm not an actor. But I know a little bit about it. And that is that when you're really in that moment, in that truth, you're not you. It's the same thing as like Steph Curry hitting the 3-point shot over and over again. Because the ego, your personality really isn't there, and you take on someone else's persona, and it kind of takes over, and it's very hard to, you have to really work hard as an actor to be able to get to those places. So they really worship and they really cherish that aspect. But whether that's actual objective truth, we don't know, of course. So, I mean, it's not objective truth, but how do we know what objective truth is?
It's, to me,
I mean, that's a philosophical question.
it sounds a little less like when they're saying it's my truth. It's not. No, the answer is this is your perspective on the situation. However, you want to make it sound more pretentious or cooler or important, so you adopt the word truth to try and make it be more important than it actually is, as opposed to like, oh, this is how I feel on this subject. What do you think? No, this is my truth, and you can't say, so they can drop the what do you think.
But with actors, they actually, it's not so much their truth as an eternal truth, a human truth.
A human truth. Yes, something,
an overarching truth.
Some kind of thread that runs through all of humanity. I have another theory about this. This is like my own. Is one reason why actors are so reactive to conservatism is that almost every play, every movie, every play ever written is fundamentally conservative. Every tragedy is conservative, for sure. It's all because it has to all make sense, and the story has to unwind in a certain way, and it almost always, I wouldn't say it's a conservative political message, but it's a conservative message, at least in my opinion. And all these things that are like, and they have to go through all of these things, and then they kind of, in a way, they want to rebel against that, because they have to, in their work life, they have to do all of these things that are so conservative. It's probably not a really well thought out theory, but in their work life, they really have to be very conservative. They have to play. Many of them have to play these extremely conservative characters, Winston Churchill or Abe Lincoln or whatever, and all these old Jane Eyre characters and everything. And it's all like, well, if you don't marry the girl, all the stories are fundamentally, they ring true. The story aspect of any of these things ring true because I don't want to say because they're conservative, they ring true. And what people who are conservatives believe is like, well, of course, you're going to meet a bad end if you're lazy your entire life and don't work, and which is, or of course you're going to meet a bad end if you, like King Lear, if you give away everything to your children who aren't prepared to deal with it, and what's going to happen. Well, okay. The other thing about, well, I don't know if this is conservative, but that people are inherently flawed, and they're going to do human things. They're going to be human, and so my idea of conservatism is to accept humanity as it is. You can't really change humanity, but you have to make rules so that these things don't proceed. And that's every culture. I mean, I think every culture is basically a conservative. Our American culture is less and less conservative, but it's the only one. When you really think about it, Europe, and to parts of Russia, and Western civilization is not so conservative compared to the rest of the world. The rest of the world, conservative meaning like, okay, we have a family, we have children, we raise our children, we don't get divorced, we don't have all of these bells and whistles. And when you look at people, so when you think about the number of people in the world, all the Chinese, all the Indians, I mean, when I say all, you know what I mean, like 90%, all people of Africa, all of the Middle East, they're all, you know, family, you know, you have a family, the man works, the woman stays home with the children and raises the children, and women have a lot of power and a lot of ability in those cultures, and they have a lot of status, and they should have a lot of status. And they actually run a lot of things that just because they don't go out and work in a cubicle or go out and hunt with the men doesn't mean that they're any lesser. In fact, they're elevated because they provide life, they keep the village together, and they make a lot of the decisions. So I think that's a fundamentally conservative viewpoint. And that's why, you know, all the Republican Party believes that, well, you know, let's have a whole bunch more Mexicans come in because, or one strain of the Republican Party, let's have a whole bunch more people from Mexico and south of the border come in because they're great people and they have nice families and they work hard and they're nice and their children are well adjusted generally, you know, the ones that don't join the gangs. And, you know, it's wonderful. So I mean, I see that. Although, you know, I also see our country as a sovereign nation, and you can't just let a whole bunch of people in. And it's weird because it conflicts with the whole feminist thing, which is, it's, you know, I mean, I think women should. I mean, I don't even know how it should proceed. I think women should have power and ability to do whatever they want, but at the same time, the ideology of it has gone beyond. You know, it's become political, and I'm sorry, I feel like I'm rambling.
It's okay. This is the show of rambling.
No,
That's the great part of the show. We'll just go wandering all over the place. Oh, it's been pretty fascinating listening to you speak on all these subjects. Yeah, I agree on the talking to a friend of mine a few days ago. In a similar situation where she was like complaining about how she's not satisfied with her life and she has like all these goals, and it's like 20 years ago you would have the husband well, not 20, 30, 40 years ago, you would have already had a husband and you would have had kids and you would have all the things that you want, but you can't get it now because, you know, what this world we created based on equality, we just have a whole lot of unhappy people. Because
and actually like 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago, like bad things happen, really unfair and terrible things happen to many women, not all women, but a lot of women. And they tried to address those things. And there were a lot of women who were born really smart, and they're kind of like, you know, a lot of women extremely proactive and interested in doing something that were discouraged. So you can't do that. You just get married to some guy and, you know, have children. And that, you know, that really, I mean, that's really a problem. So we addressed that problem, but now we have other problems
like population depletion. I mean, the women were liberated to pursue employment opportunities equal to men at the same time that the pill came out. It's interesting.
Yeah. Well, they aided in it. It was a cycle that.
Well, I'm just saying that I know of women reading biographies of women writers from the 1800s and early 1900s. Some of them had 12 children or came from families of 12 children. And it's rare that you hear that anymore.
Yeah.
Well, when you really think about it, the psychological reward of children is beyond anything. It's beyond money. It's beyond fame. It's beyond wealth or comfort. What is one of the most satisfying things in the world is to have children, more so for women, but equally, you know, almost as much for men, but more so with women, because and once you have children, like, and that's like a huge reward. And I only have two, but I can imagine if you have 6 or 10, they're all different. That's the other thing. It's amazing about children. They come out, they're different, especially if you talk to people who have a bunch of different kids and they say, yeah, they're each one. This is Clark, he's this way, and this is Mary, and she's that way. And and different from Sally and different from Elizabeth. They're all, they just are born unique. And that's when you learn, that's when I learned anyway, that there's something really special about each human being. Not that I unfortunately can't see that every day, but oh, you. But there's something really special about every human being, and they're unique. And so maybe that's the soul, that the uniqueness of each human being. Again, Boss Mungo, to remember him, a unique guy. There's no other. He cannot be replaced. There's no other Boss Mungo in the world ever, and that's just, yeah. So I mean, I think so. That's a reward in and of itself. So to tell women like, oh, you don't need to have kids. You just have to have a career, and then they find out how dead end it is. Almost all of these careers are horrible dead ends. Horribly unfulfilling, and it's getting worse because now everything's really disconnected. You're in a corporation somewhere. It's not like you're, working at a corner store and seeing the people come in and whatever. It's everything's disjointed. You might even be like a lawyer where you have to screw people every day or help other lawyers screw people every day, one way or the other. And it's not satisfying. And so many women find this out, and then by the time they find it out, they're too old to have kids.
Yeah. That's my friend's big fear, is that she's going to be in that kind of situation. And I'm like, you're a very beautiful woman and you have a lot to offer. You have a few situations that make it hard for you to go. But she's like, the problem is like, I can't meet anyone who is decent. All these people are such jerks out there. And I'm like, well, you know what? It used to be we had to compromise, and that's part of like marriage and relationships, is to compromise with your other half. And so we're raised from my generation and a little bit earlier, and all the kids now, that you never compromise on everything. There's always your perfect alternative is out there. You just have to keep looking.
Yeah, and because the world is now so, I mean, we have access to the entire world, which is the most amazing change in history that's ever happened, and we forget that. I believe that we really forget that this all connectivity, that we can see what's going on, in Afghanistan, not because of, or in Turkmenistan or whatever, and we can watch somebody, dances from Tahiti, and we can do anything and see anything. That all this interconnectivity is really changing us radically, and one of the things that it's done is to women, especially I think American, and mostly American women more than anything. I don't know what it is, but it's very, very high expectations. And when you really think about it, like, in the old days, it was like you had a village and people, the village of, let's say, 1,500 people or something, and you would meet your mate and you would kind of settle, like, you would settle one way or the other. Like the girls would settle on the boy, and the boy would settle on because, okay, let's make a life together. And it wasn't really about the wealthiest, the most attractive, the most this, the most that. It was just like, okay, she's a nice girl and she likes me, and I like her, and maybe she's not the belle of the ball, but hey, we have to do something. We have to have kids. We have this little farm, and I'm going to get older, and there's no Social Security, so we're going to have to make it. Mm-hmm. And it was, it was more about marriage as a pact of something else, and it wasn't all this love. That's the other thing. I think romantic comedies and all that stuff, all this love stuff, all this romance is toxic. It's really toxic. Because every guy has to be like Hugh Grant. Okay, they might not have to be super attractive, and they don't, but they certainly have to have a job, and they certainly have to have good income, and they have to have better income, and they have to be charming, and they can't be allowed, and they can't ever be whatever. There's a million things that the guy can't be for a girl to want him. And there are a lot of women who are just not there are guys who are fives and there are girls who are fives, but the girls who are fives, they want the nines and the tens. And of course, plenty of guys will want the 9 and the 10 women, but they realize at some point they can't have that. They can't have that. But it's almost like the women don't ever give up hope. It's always like, I want the 7, 8, or 9 or 10, but nothing less than that. And hey, I can't blame them. I mean, I don't know, but it's not like, it's not it's the whole idea of marriage and, having a family is all changing because it's not necessary anymore. It used to be necessary. So anyway.
Why is it not necessary anymore?
Why is it
I'm thinking in my mind, there's a contrast between love and economics. I think of All in the Family with the Archie Bunker and Edith, and they've stayed. It's almost like they fit a 1930s characterization of staying together because it's the right thing to do, and also there's an economic component to it. Edith couldn't go out and get a job, I'm assuming. But today it's all about love, and women are as free as men to get jobs and support themselves. And it seems like how do you feel about the economic component of marriage that sort of compels people to, or in the past compelled people to stay together, as opposed to well,
I say that in my own marriage.
It's been 8 years, and
we had my own marriage 25 years, but we had a period where I think my wife would have definitely left me, but she couldn't leave me because we couldn't afford it. We couldn't have done. We had a child, and we muddled through that period, and now we're happier than we've ever been, really. And so we made it over that hump. But there's too many times. And I have a first marriage. I was married for 10 years and divorced, and I have a child from that marriage. And I realized at some point that, the other thing is you stay together for the children. Like, I regret, in a sense, it was inevitable that we got divorced, but that really hurt my first daughter that we were divorced. And I really suffered from the divorce of my parents. In retrospect, I mean, I don't know what it would have been, but I wish they had stayed together and fought. Go ahead and fight like cats and dogs. I can deal with that, but I can't deal with like having to move and be uprooted. I can't. I did deal with it, but
I feel you there. I was a child of divorced parents, and yeah, I have some friends who they definitely can't stay together kind of situation for children's safety, but so many other times it should be, well, let's keep these kids stay together till the kid's 18, and then we can get a divorce.
Yeah, right. And there's all other kinds of arrangements that you can have, and it's not the end of the world. The other thing that I can't stand that happens too is this whole cheating thing. Like, I know, and this is probably not good for Ricochet, but this is where I'm not really that conservative, but when you hear stories of, some guy that went to Las Vegas and, to a bachelor party, and they had like a hooker there, and maybe he had some kind of interaction with the hooker. And I heard a story, this is a true story. And he was a devoted father and husband, but he had a moment of weakness with some girl, and he stupidly told his wife about it. And she immediately filed for divorce. because he had a sexual experience with some some tramp in Las Vegas.
Mhm.
And he felt so horrible about it. He told her, and they had kids. And it's like, that's not the same as some guy who's a serial philanderer, or something. And I know that's an extreme case, but there's other cases like that. And same thing with men and women. But usually men kind of forgive if the woman goes out and does something. It's not like the man says, okay, okay, I want a divorce immediately. Like, you still need to work that stuff. You can work that stuff out, and it's not, but there's way too much like, oh, if he even looks at another woman, that's it. Okay, all right.
Mhm.
Well, you're going against nature. You have to accept, and that's where I also feel like I'm a conservative, in the sense that I believe in human nature. I believe human beings are who they are, and you have to accept them that way. I'm not saying that we condone it, but condone quote unquote bad behavior, but you have to accept that that's the way we are, and then design things to make that type of thing work. And that's what the institution of marriage is about. Accepting that men and women, men want to kind of play the
field. Oh, you cut out there.
field, and
Oh, there,
women
we're
want
back.
to, oh, okay. Anyway, I think we're getting way too philosophical. Let's talk about something else.
Okay.
I feel like I'm digging a
Well,
hole.
Let me ask you this, a quick question with a quick answer. In
Yeah.
acting, there's a thing called mugging, which is broad facial expression, and it's considered to be a sign of weak acting. I can't imagine a clown not mugging. Do you have an opinion on mugging?
Well, yeah, because it's if you okay, clowning is more. It's broader comedy generally, and like, well, okay, so it's all audience manipulation. So it's all, I mean, I haven't even thought this out, but it is all kind of audience. So clowning is blatant audience manipulation, whereas acting is subtle audience manipulation. And also it's letting the audience is in on the joke. If the clown is mugging, the audience knows that the clown is mugging. The clown, that's the joke.
That's the language.
Well, I don't know what you mean by so the language of movement and expression is, pantomime and dance, really, and it goes way back. So I don't know what you mean by mugging, but it like throwing a facial expression at somebody is like an emoji. Let's just put it that way, like an emoji on your face, and so if that's what you mean by mugging.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Mugging for the camera.
Like Meryl Streep doesn't do that when she's in Sophie's Choice, but she's doing a subtle version of that. And a clown or comedic or Dick Van Dyke is doing a very, he's doing a very strong, obvious version of that. So I don't know if that's what you mean by mugging, but
I just meant broad. I meant the emoji. Yeah, acting. Yeah.
We're getting near the end, getting to the back end of the show. So I was going to ask you a question. You mentioned at the end of your bio that you went to Cairo at around the age of 25, and that led to your political awakening. So I was wondering what you meant by how that happened. What was it about being in Egypt that led to that?
Yeah, well, I was kind of stuck in Egypt for a year, and there's not much to do there. I lived in downtown Cairo, and most of the Americans lived in Madi, which is a suburbs kind of gated community. But I lived downtown, and it was kind of a shock. I had been around, I was other countries before, but I've never been into Islam. on the country, and it was very depressing or oppressive or whatever. It was not the whole vibe of the country was really kind of a shock. Anyway, I lived there for a year, and there's not much to do, so I would go to the cafes, and they had very strong coffee there, and I would drink the coffee and read the newspapers. So, and I hadn't really, I was kind of default liberal at that time when I went over there, and but I started understanding world politics and reading all the newspapers, the International Herald Tribune, the Arab News, which was in English, and some other newspapers published in English from the Gulf states. And I also heard all the scuttlebutt. That was in 1979, which was right around the Camp David Accords. Sadat and Sadat was president at the time. Mm-hmm. Shortly thereafter, after I left, he was assassinated, basically for cozying up to Israel. And Menachem Begin and Jimmy Carter and all the taxi cab drivers were all like, America, America, we're not going to fight anymore, because they were tired of the war, incessant war with Israel. But I also heard the whole Arab side of the Israeli Arab conflict, which I kind of bought at first. Because I didn't know any of that stuff. I didn't know about the bombing of I think it was USS Liberty. There were other things, and some of it may have not even been true, but I heard their side of everything for a while. But then I also recognized that that's not really, and I also came to know the nature of Arabs and the Muslims, and how they approach things, and it's very different than the way we approach things. And Sha'Allah means like it's God's will. So if you're in a construction site and there's a big pillar, I was told the story by somebody who was working over there, an American. Maybe we should put that on the ground because it might fall on somebody, and they say, well, if it falls on somebody, then it was meant to fall on somebody. It was God's will. So just why bother? So that kind of mentality, and it was kind of this whole third world, let's do it tomorrow, Bokra later, I don't have it, I'm not, it was just like completely lazy. And it was a socialist country. I mean, it's a socialist country. Mm-hmm. So you go to college and you get a government, if you can get into college, you're one student of 300, and then you learn to be an engineer, but there are no engineering jobs because there's no concrete companies, there's no infrastructure there. There's no, it's just everything is top or bottom, peasantry and so in order to get anything done, you just have to jump through a million hoops, because there's also all the bureaucracy, which we now have here a lot, but horrible bureaucracy. So I just encountered all of that and just learned how socialism is so inefficient, and how it makes people lazy, and people graduate from college with an engineering degree, and they have to take a job at the Ministry of Truth, or whatever their equivalent of that is, and they stamp papers. And if they don't come into their job that day, the other bureaucrats protect them and say, "Oh no, you have to come back tomorrow because the guy that's supposed to stamp your papers isn't here today." It's just endless. And in university, I knew some people who were going to medical school there, some Americans, and they were telling me that how the professors will sell like basically the answers to the tests because it's a government job to be a professor, so they're making money on the side. So they sell tutoring services, or they'll sell not really the answers to the test, but otherwise you have to read like 18 books, or else just read this 45-page manual. which I'm selling for $5. And then, so they're making money on the side. So it's a so-called free education, but it's not, it's worthless. It's worthless. So, I mean, all these levels. So that's when I came to begin understanding. And then later I started understanding more the Israel Arab conflict as being like, well, I can begin to understand why the Israelis are doing what they're doing, because these are the people that they're fighting against, Hezbollah, Hamas, and that type of person. I went to the pyramids and enjoyed that. Later on, I've really come to be flabbergasted at the pyramids. That's a whole thing that I'm like way interested in about ancient archaeology, ancient megalithic societies and stuff. But yeah, that's what really opened me up. And then I came back to the United States and started listening to Rush Limbaugh. And he just made sense to me pretty much. And I was actually also married to a Black woman. My first wife was African American, and but she wasn't really very political, and but that also informed me a lot, because I started reading a lot of Thomas Sowell. Not a lot of his. I read about 3 or 4 of his books, and I read American Spectator and National Review. I had a subscription to those, and I just saw the whole. I started to see through the whole artifice of the left on every level. So I don't know. So now I'm almost now out of the political realm, because I don't even know what to think anymore. I really don't. I don't know what, I don't know. I mean, I know that socialism and communism is bad, but I'm also not into the new corporatism and the globalism of our modern world that is, anti-nationalist and so anyway, yeah, that's kind of where I woke up. But also to say that the people in the arts are usually much more sophisticated in their political thinking than the conservatives give them credit for.
Okay.
I really think a lot of them vote for Democrats and stuff, but they're not the ones who are really there are a lot of more outside the box thinkers.
Right.
And we're seeing it now in Hollywood. Like, a lot of the Hollywood people are tacitly saying, this stuff isn't really that, who was it even? I mean, Bill Mayer, I mean, not that he's anybody to emulate, but a lot of them are because at least they're for freedom. And so I bond with people who are for freedom, whether they're left or right. Now, I think the people who are left are going down the wrong path, but but I have been following people like Jimmy Dore and who, I mean, he's total communist, but at least he recognizes the truth he wants journalists to actually report the facts. And
he also doesn't want them to be all ex-CIA agents.
yes,
There's no such thing as ex-CIA.
Yeah. But I was watching that. There was some report the other day, and he was talking about it, and he's like, look, the Tucker Carlson thing. And he's like, look, in order to rebut Tucker's claim that the NSA spying on him, ABC brought on 2 FBI agents to say, "Don't worry, it's all fine." And they're 2 FBI agents. Like, really? Like, you don't think this would never happen to the 80s?
Hilarious. I wish we had more people like him on our side, because he's so hilarious, and he makes these points beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just yeah, why don't we have people like him? Mark Stein, kind of close, but he's very funny, but and I really like him a lot, but yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. And the left used to be very what I used to think was paranoid about the CIA and the Patriot Act and everything. But in fact, they were absolutely right. They were absolutely right. And if you are for liberty, the Patriot Act, and having the NSA looking into all of our emails or whatever and collecting, and then obviously it's all become politicized, and it's not politicized in conservatives' favor at all. Mm. And they've taken over the media. And I say that not as when I say taken over, they have infiltrated the media, whether they have actual people inside, or whether they have Clapper on or Brennan on, or if their sources are from the intel agencies. We've seen it for the past 4 years or 5 years, how they has anonymous sources told us this, blah, 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 about such and such. Doesn't matter what it is, anonymous source. Well, that source is in the intel agencies. That's how they got their information. So what if, what's the concept? What if the intel agencies are actively leaking certain things to craft the narrative? Would that ever happen? Oh, no, they would never do that. Oh, no. No, of course, our intelligence agencies are perfectly pristine. They're not going to do that. I mean, are you kidding me? They've been doing this. They've been subverting countries around the world. They've been screwing up elections in every country around the world, every pivotal country around the world for decades. And they're not going to do it here if they can? Yep. Of course they're going to do it.
Mm-hmm. And people are getting a little bit more wise. I think that's the thing that we're seeing the last few years. Since 2016, ironically, we've been able to finally see how the scales are falling away from people's eyes, and they're finally seeing what's really going on, and that it's really a tension between those wanting greater liberty and those wanting more authoritarianism. And so the groups that traditionally, the George W. Bush era, there was a lot of authoritarians on the right. Most of those guys have gone to the left now, and so it's just, if you believe in bigger centralized authority on the left, especially, but if you want your freedoms, the Jimmy Dores and other guys are like coming over to are forming the new coalition. I think there's a big political switch happening, especially in the United States, and that's what we're seeing.
Totally. Ironically, the right is supposed to be authoritarian, and the left is supposed to be libertine, but it's really twisted, because the left is they're totally, and this is not new, because Hitler was the left, Stalin was anything. I mean, one of the biggest books that changed my life was The Black Book of Communism, which is a big, thick book that chronicles all of the communist regimes, like even Yugoslavia, all of these different communist regimes, and it's the same story every time. The whole Ukraine, the whole Russian Revolution, the whole Vietnam communism in every country. It chronicles, and it's inevitable that what happens is that, once you have collectivization, which is what they're trying to do in this country and everywhere in the world, once you have that, then you have to have uniformity of thought. And if you don't have uniformity of thought, then that means that somebody's your obstacle, and those people have to be eliminated. They have to be like pushed off somewhere, or killed, or canceled, or whatever. They have to be, because we can't have that kind of thinking, because we can't have the utopia that we want with these people around, because they're the naysayers. They're saying, no, 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 we can't all do that all at once. No, we're individuals. They have to stamp out the individuals, and that creates, you know, and then whenever when they're doing the central planning thing, which obviously doesn't work, whenever there's a failure, and there are failures, they blame it on the people who are the obstacles. Oh, it's because of those people. Those people are the obstacles. Once we eliminate them, then everything will be great. Our crops will grow and everything will be great. But it's those people who are hoarding. They're hoarding the grain. You know, they're keeping our state. You know, and it's just endless. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Do they really believe that there's do the people doing the control, do they really believe in a utopia, or is this just something they're selling to the proles?
I think that they kind of believe in it, but it doesn't matter because they're at the top anyway. So that it doesn't matter. I see it more like people are kind of surfing on the wave. And if they're at the top of the wave, in the sweet spot of the wave, and I don't even surf, but I'm using this analogy, but they're in the sweet part of the wave, and they're just gonna like jam as things come and make things work for them as they come along, like never waste an opportunity, and they're on the top of this kind of communist, Marxist, socialist wave. And they're getting all the benefit from it, so they're just going to continue to. I mean, I think we all kind of psychologically are, when we're getting benefit from something, we believe in it. Whatever it is we're getting benefit from, we kind of believe it. We kind of believe it, and that's kind of natural human tendency. Which is, to just take this back a little bit full circle, is that why I believe religion is really good. Is religion is whether. You know, it doesn't matter whether any of it's true. The fact that all of it has built up so much wisdom over the years, it's a kind of a proxy for belief. If you don't believe in God, then you have to believe in something else, because human beings are natural believers. We believe as children everything. We believe you tell a child, you know, I have a star in my hand, you know, Santa Claus, this fat guy comes down the chimney, they believe it. They believe anything. They're not rational. We human beings aren't really that rational, and I'm just discovering this. I'm a very rational person myself, but so it's hard for me to get my head around it. But yes, we are not that rational. We're believers. We're natural believers. So we will believe anything, and that's what's happening. They're bombarding everybody with all of this, that, the other thing. You know, whether it's Trump or whether it's COVID, whatever they're doing. People are getting really mesmerized, and we believe it. I can see myself believing it. If I watch that stuff every day, I have to have compassion for these people, for some of these people, because if I watched MSNBC and CNN every day, or even ABC, I would be afraid of COVID too.
Right.
But you know, it's because we're all susceptible to that kind of thing, and they know it. Actually, it's been codified. They figured it out. They've codified this stuff.
Well, guys, we've been getting close to the end of the show here. It's been a fascinating discussion, but this host has to eat sometime soon. But I wanted to go out on a bit of a high note, or a nice note, after going down the mind control Soviet Union path here. So why don't we talk about your music career at the end there? You have, I understand you have 4 CDs that you've published.
Yes. Nobody buys CDs anymore, though. So my last CD was like, I hadn't produced one in like 4 or 5 years, and we had some longstanding fans who would come to our show, and I said, we have a new CD. So yeah, I know that they wanted, you know, they would buy one. But they say, yeah, but I don't have a CD player. I don't have one, and not even in my car. Everything's streaming. So, anyway, I just got back from Renaissance Fair this weekend, was the first. I did one in Texas for 2 months. I mean, yeah, for October, November last year. That was open, and that was all masked and everything. We didn't have to wear masks on stage, but we had to take our temperature every morning and all that stuff. But this one's a really nice one in upstate New York, and it was really fun. So I started playing Irish Celtic music in the 90s, guitar, mandolin, and violin. And just really got into it, I guess. And my wife she's a psychotherapist, but she's also a singer. And we met as performers years ago, 30 years ago, really, we met as performers. She was also a clown. She's a psychoanalyst. But she takes the weekends off, and we do these Renaissance festivals. And we've done different ones. Right now we're only doing 2 this year. This one, and then we have some time off, and then Texas for 2 months. But they're really. Have you ever been to a Renaissance festival?
Yeah, I haven't done too many, but I've walked around them.
Which one did you go to?
They're less informal ones, but I've done ones here in Ontario. So there was one up in Milton. It's very small. It wasn't a big one.
Yeah, see, that's one of the problems that when I talk about Renaissance festivals to people, because a lot of people have gone to a small one and they're okay, but it's not really the same. It's kind of fairly lame, actually, in most cases, because they don't have any money and they're not paying their performers. So the performers are kind of amateurish generally. And but if you go to a big one, there are some good things for sure. So so we do the Texas one, and we do this one. We've done the one in Michigan, and several in Florida and Pennsylvania over the years. And now I've gotten to the point where I'm kind of tired of the Celtic music myself. I like Scandinavian folk music, and I like classical. I've been studying classical. I have my electric violin that I love to play, and I have my rental violin that is very nice. It's the nicest violin I've ever had. It's worth $7,000, which is which is cheap actually for a good violin, but still better than what I have. And so I play music every morning. I really like that, and it's kind of a hobby. At least half of the violin players at the Sterling Fair where I'm at they're spectacular players. They're way beyond me. I started way too late, but I play okay for what I do, and we have a nice band. So it doesn't matter whether I'm, as spectacular as they are necessarily. We have our unique sound and everything, but it's just wonderful to experience. Because not too many people, in the music business make money, and this is one way. The Renaissance festivals is a I wouldn't say it's lucrative, but at least pays. It pays. We make a profit. We're not doing it for fun, but I mean we are doing it for fun. It was great fun, but it's a lot of work. I had my friend saw me packing. I was packing for like 2 days. He says, and he heard it. He said, "You still here? You still packing?" I said, "Yep, I'm still packing." He goes, "Well, have fun." He's like, "Well, it's going to be a long time. I have a 5-hour drive, and then I have a lot to set up. And then at some point I might have fun at the end of the day, after I'm nervously going like, oh, I've never played on the stage before, and how is this going to work? And to be on time, to have everything prepared. There's so much preparation you have to do as a performer. So it's all preparation. There's so much preparation. It's not funny. And the checklist is like, I think I'd rather fly an airplane and do all those checklists compared to the amount that I have to do, what I have to do to bring to put a show on. But then once it's all done, there's this huge feeling of relaxation and happiness. And I think that that's what a lot of performers get addicted to. That's why the Rolling Stones, and they're like 75 years old, are still going out, because there's nothing like that feeling. There's nothing like that feeling of doing a show, it's over, especially if it's a good show, but even if it's not, you've done it all, you've put everything into it that you can put into, and then it's and then the feeling of relaxation is grand. So anyway, I hope that's a nice ending for.
I think that is that. I feel that, and I feel maybe we're going to have a bit of that cathartic experience as soon as I press end stream.
I feel a little bit like I rambled and went off on tangents that I really made, whatever, that I wasn't really. It's so much easier to write because you can edit and you can just. Than to just talk. But
no,
anyway.
no. I think this has been a great stream and a great show, and I really got to know you, and we had more of some interesting philosophical stuff, and that's what I really like to enjoy. It's not just about like learning your basic history or something. We can get to know you from having these conversations. What do you feel, Flicker?
I enjoyed this an awful lot, and I enjoyed listening.
Mm-hmm.
I think you had a lot to say.
Yeah.
Great, Flicker. I wish we have to connect again, because over Italy and everything, because that was really interesting little interchange we had about Italy, and you were in Guam, right?
Yes.
But not for much longer.
Well, hopefully we'll be moving back to the States at the end of this year.
And you're going to Georgia, right?
Right. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can meet up sometime before one of us dies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good plan.
Yep. Okay. And with that, I think that should end the show there. And I guess we'll see you guys all in the comments on Ricochet. Bye-bye.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good talking with you.